Hey, it's fall, y'all, and that means if you have a scarecrow or some pumpkins that you want to put on your front porch or along your steps or out by the driveway, usually these pretty mums are part of that mix. But today I want to talk to you and share with you some information about mums that a lot of people don't even know. Hi, I'm Kara, and welcome to Home and Garden DIY, where you'll get the information you need so you can get started on the projects that you want to work on. So let's talk about chrysanthemums, or mums as they're called for short. These are actually perennials. And a lot of people don't know that. Now, if you're a new gardener and you're not familiar with what an annual or a perennial each of those are, an annual basically is a plant that lives its whole life cycle in one growing season. So it starts out as a seed, it becomes a plant, it blooms, it puts on foliage, and it dies and it sets seed. A perennial, though, is a plant that will bloom from season to season, and many of them will bloom for many seasons for you. Some perennials the foliage will die back when it gets cold. We're in north central Texas, so it's not a given always that plants are going to die off. The foliage is going to die off on a perennial. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the weather. But perennials are always going to come back from their roots and bloom for you again or put foliage on again, depending on what kind of plant it is. So these pretty chrysanthemums are actually perennials, and you can plant them in your garden, or you can keep them in a container and they'll grow for you. So a little bit later in the video, I'll talk to you about how to plant mums, whether you're planting it in the ground or whether you plan to plant it in a container. So right now, let me show you some pictures from the yards of two of my landscape design clients so that you can get an idea how mums can be used in your landscape and how pretty they can be even when they're not blooming, and what a nice purpose they can serve in your landscape. I'm going to allow these pictures to just play without comment from me, because the point again is to just let you see how the mums can serve just a great purpose in your landscape, and I think these illustrate it for you fairly well. If you have any questions about them though, just ask me in the comments and I'll be happy to get back with you. Thanks! Before I talk to you about how to plant your mums, I want to let you know that there is going to be a bonus at the end of this video, so be sure and stick around. So if you've decided to plant your mums in the ground, that's going to be a very easy thing for you to do. You just plant it like you do any other plant, and the only thing that you're going to need to take into consideration is that since you're planting it, if you are planting them in the fall, which is likely, you will need to give them some food at the roots, and the best thing I can recommend for you to use is liquid seaweed. I have a video about liquid seaweed and how amazing it is, and it does feed your plants, but the main thing it does is help a plant to put on a really strong root system, and it works incredibly. So again, if you're not familiar with liquid seaweed, go check that video out. I'll link it in the description for you. If you decide to use seaweed, you're just going to apply it to the root zone of your mum or mums. And what I recommend that people do, you'll just apply it according to the instructions on the package. Usually it's 1 ounce or 2 ounces to a gallon. But you'll apply it according to the package instructions, mix it up according to the package instructions, and then just apply it to the root zones of your mums. You don't need to water the foliage, just apply it where the root ball actually is. The best way to water in an amendment is to water first, just with water. And you can think of it like a sponge, a brand new sponge. If you take a brand new sponge and you try and plunge it into water, it's just gonna pop up out. But if you let that sponge absorb some water first, and then you wring it out, and then you put it in that bucket of water, it's gonna absorb water and hold it. That's the same thing that happens when you plant a plant and you water it. If you water first, that soil is going to hold whatever amendment you pour onto it afterward. So water first, and then after 5 minutes or so, then go ahead and pour on your liquid seaweed. And your seaweed is going to stay right there in that root ball of the plant far better than it would if you just put the seaweed on without watering first. What I recommend that you do is to water every day with the liquid seaweed mixed with water for at least a week, and that will give a nice strong start to your mums so that they can get well established before winter. The other thing that you should do is mulch the area around the base of your plant. Be sure though, with any plant that you plant any time of the year, that you do not pile mulch up at the base of the plant. That's always going to be a bad thing, and you don't want to do that. What you're wanting to do is cover the ground around the outside of that root ball, the top of the plant, here, let me show you. This is called the root ball, and you want to put your mulch basically from this area outside. So you're never going to want to pile it up on this area right here. You just want to make sure that that mulch stays away from the base of the plant. The other thing that you're going to want to do for mums, or really any other plant in your landscape, and again, we're in north central Texas, so I'm not trying to get you prepared for a winter in Alberta or in Wisconsin. So in those instances, obviously you're going to have to give your plants far more cold protection than what I'm getting ready to discuss. But the main thing you can do here in north central Texas, if we're getting ready to get some really cold weather, is to make sure that you go out and water at the ground level for your plants well before that freeze event or freezing rain event or really severe drop in temperature, like if we're going to get 10 degrees below zero weather, which doesn't happen very often, but it does sometimes happen. So that's the best thing you can do, because watering at the ground, not your foliage, just water the ground at your plants, is going to help keep that root zone moist, and it will help keep the root zone of your plant from freezing. Now let's talk about what you do if you want to plant your mum in a container. This is the container that this mum I have came in from the nursery where it was grown. What you'll want to do is buy a container that's at least twice as wide as this one. So let's say that this plant that I have right here is in a container that's 10 inches across. I'm going to want to buy a container that's 20 inches across. And the reason for that is that these roots are very likely really crowded into this pot because it's been growing in this pot the whole time it's been alive, more than likely. So you want to put it in a new pot, put extra soil in that pot so that it's got plenty of room to continue to grow. And that's basically it for the containers. I'd still recommend that you use liquid seaweed to go ahead and get your roots of your plant established. You do need to check the soil in a pot to make sure that it's getting enough water, not getting too much water. Mums tend to like to just be consistently moist. They don't like to get dried out between waterings, and they don't like to be just watered to death. So you do need to check the soil. Now, one last thing about seaweed that I really want to make sure you're aware of, and again, if you don't know about seaweed, I talk a lot more detail about it in the video that's linked down in the description. Be sure that you are actually getting liquid seaweed only, because liquid seaweed often comes in a container mixed with a substance called fish emulsion. And fish emulsion is extremely high in nitrogen, so it's a great food. And if you're trying to feed your plants in the middle of the growing season, using fish emulsion mixed with seaweed is a great thing to do. But if you're doing what I'm talking about, where you're just trying to get the roots of your plant established before we start going into cold weather, if we do have it here in Central Texas, North Central Texas, you just want the liquid seaweed. As I often do, I'm going to finish off this video for you with pictures from the garden so you can enjoy that. But I do have one quick tip for you about mums, which is really pretty cool. Mums actually require about 12 hours of darkness out of a day to cause them to start setting buds. So if you decide to keep your mum or mums in containers, you can actually take them most any time of the year and give them a series of days of putting them in the dark, and you can force blooms by doing that. So that's not something I personally have tried, but I learned that recently. I think it's really cool, and I am totally gonna try it because I love mums. They're a beautiful plant, and I hope this has convinced you to use mums in your landscape. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. There will be more flowers again at the end, but right now here are some more pictures of the yards of a few of my landscape design clients. They all vary widely in the things that they asked for and in their tastes, and hopefully these will also inspire you in how you can use mums and other plants in containers and directly in the ground to make your landscape more personal and more enjoyable to be in your outdoor spaces.